until you start, and then I'm going to go get breakfast because this is my life.
We hear you. We're living it.
Every day, every day. Oh, lots of people. Look at them all, Billy.
This brightens my morning to see all these names pop up.
I know. Good morning. Good morning.
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 Billy, how many do we have registered for this morning?
119, right in there. That's good.
All right, you let me know when we're ready, Billy.
Yeah, we are ready.
Okay. Well, good morning and welcome. Thank you for joining us for the Northwest Illinois Regional Volunteerism Conference. We'd hoped to deliver the full day in-person workshop in the spring, but that's not been possible. But the topic of belonging is so relevant today, we didn't want to wait to offer the program until we could gather 100 people in a room. So we're here via Zoom to offer a series of workshops each month on the topic of belonging with a lineup of extraordinary speakers. But before we get started, I'd like to cover a few housekeeping items. So we ask you to remain muted through the presentation. We'll unmute you during the Q&A. If you have a question, we ask you to put it in the chat box, and we'll go through the questions in order that they're received. The format for this morning and each month includes a keynote speaker, followed by a facilitated conversation with our friends, Carrie Acevedo and Martesha Brown, specific to the topics that are going to be presented. After the keynote, we'll take about a 5-minute break to push away from our screens, stand and stretch, grab a cup of coffee or whatever you'd like before we start the conversation portion. So we really hope that you'll stay with us throughout the conversation, because we know that sharing and listening are critical to understanding. And we know that understanding can lead to coming together for a common purpose and a sense of belonging for all people. So thank you again for joining us for this monthly journey of expanding the we and working to build a culture of belonging. Today, we're honored to have Martesha Brown as our speaker. She's going to be talking about marketing to diversify your volunteer base. So you'll hear from Martesha during the presentation and part of the co-facilitated conversation afterwards. So this is our lucky day to get a double dose of Martesha. So to introduce Martesha, Martesha Brown is a Rockford native and MBA graduate of Rockford University with a passion for community engagement. She is currently the Director of Advancement for the Rockford Area Convention and Visitors Bureau, with previous leadership roles in economic development, public relations, marketing, and operations for Alpine Bank, Midland States Bank, and the Rockford Park District. She's an active volunteer and has been awarded numerous accolades. She is Rockford grown, Rockford committed, and she's proud of it. Please help me to welcome Martesha Brown.
Hello, everyone. Good morning. I hope you guys can all hear me loud and clear. I'm going to go ahead and get started with sharing my screen here. All right, are you guys all seeing the screen? Perfect. All right. So again, thank you guys so much. And thank you, Nickme, for inviting me to be a part. I have been so excited to share this information, specifically as it relates to the day and age and what's going on with the times. I think this is definitely a very, very timely subject. So again, excited to share with you guys ways, tips on how you can market to diversify your volunteer base. So as I mentioned, this is definitely very good times for this discussion, especially with current events as it relates to equity and justice being on the top of mind for many. I don't know if any of you guys stayed up late last night watching the election. We were talking a bit before we got on the call, and I kind of cut off at 10:30 and said, you know what? I'm not going to have any anxiety as I'm watching this. We'll find out in the next couple of days what's going on there. But again, with just everything that's going on, this is the right time to have these types of conversations. There's also really this, I would say, the sense of urgency. And for me, sometimes it can be a little bit overwhelming, but what has been very encouraging for me and what I've heard from some of my friends and other community leaders is that we need to focus in on what we can do to change our piece of the world. I'm going to say that one more time. We have to focus in on what we can do to change our piece of the world. And what that means today is, what can we do to change, or rather diversify, our volunteer base? The third thing is recognition. So there's been a lot more intentionality around equity and inclusion, and noticing that, or rather realizing that that has to move from beyond employment and into that volunteering space. And so I just want you guys all, as we are on the call today, to get a good old sip of coffee and be very, very encouraged as we all have the opportunity to impact our piece of the world. So let's dive right into this. Today we're going to talk about the why, the who, and the how. And then following, I'll give you guys a couple of tips from some user groups that I've worked with on how we can, or what we rather can do to market to diversify our volunteer base. So kicking off with the why. All right, so the why do we need to have this conversation? Well, first and foremost, ethnicity and what's going on with our population. The white share of the US population has been dropping since 1950, and based upon census information, is going to continue to go down. Studies have shown that whites will become the minority, dropping below 50% sometime around the time of 2040 or 2045. The highest growing populations include our Hispanic and Latino population, followed by African Americans, and then followed by Asian. The second thing that we need to focus in, again, when we talk about the changes in our population, is age. So pretty soon, I want to say probably in the next 20 years, you're going to see that 50% of our population is going to be 65 and older, and 50% of our population is going to be 64 and younger. So that is a split. So as we are thinking about diversifying our volunteer base, we have to know what it's going to look like in the future and what is currently shifting. The third thing I want us to pay close attention to is the changes in socioeconomic class. So there was a recent Gallup poll where individuals were asked to self-identify. This is important, to self-identify their socioeconomic class. And this was identified on the basis of wealth, education level, occupation, as well as accesses to resources. And here's what they found. 58% of individuals consider themselves middle class, 30% as working class, and 8% as lower class. And so you can see that there is a great portion of our community that does not see themselves as wealthy, which means as we are seeking volunteers and as we are seeking board members, we may have to have a shift in our mindset based upon what's actually out there in our population who's actually available to help serve. The fourth one that I want to share with you is persons with disabilities. Now, this is something that is near and dear to my heart. It's my mom. She works for Auburn High School, and she's actually a job coach, and she works with people with disabilities. And she's run into some barriers there as she's engaging with different organizations for them to volunteer. And so this is something that's really near and dear to my heart. When we talk about marketing to diversify our populations, we cannot forget a group that I personally feel is marginalized and often left out of the conversation surrounding diversity. And these are people with disabilities. Actually, yesterday evening, I had the chance to chat with Eric Brown of RAMP. He is like he's my good friend. And anytime that I am speaking on, as it pertains to this group, I want to make sure that I am doing my due diligence and that I'm being respectful. And so I really appreciate just giving him a call on the phone last night and talking to him about what I wanted to share. And we've talked many times before, but yesterday evening, we talked briefly about how important it is to ensure that this is highlighted within all of our discussions, even those outside of ethnicity. That we have to understand that there is a dynamic, or rather lived experience for individuals that, and this could possibly be a barrier. He made what I would say is a very strong and true statement, and it has stuck with me. And he said, if organizations are planning to have more than 3 volunteers, they should be having this discussion. because because 1 in 4 individuals have a disability. So again, if you're an organization and you're planning on having more than 3 volunteers, show of hands for those that are on the screen. I'm thinking we probably need more than 3. This is something that needs to be incorporated into your conversation. What does it mean as it relates to reasonable accommodations? So moving on, I want us just to start to get into the mindset of what does this all mean? I know that Carrie and I are going to be leading a conversation and asking a few questions at the end of the presentation. And so throughout the presentation, you'll see some of these questions pop up. And if you have a pen and paper, I just want you to make a note of where your thoughts are right now in this moment. What does this all mean? I'm also going to show a short video, and so I'll ask Billy if she wants to, I'll stop sharing here and she can go ahead and load that up. I want to share with you guys a short video, and again, just take the opportunity to think about your thoughts, and we'll discuss them a little bit more after the presentation. Thank you, thank you. I'm gonna give a stab here of sharing my screen one more time. Just bear with me. All right, are you guys all seeing the full screen there? Perfect. All right, so again, in watching that video, we probably want to chat about it now, but I'm just going to ask that you just take a couple of notes and we can discuss this even more as we get into the Q&A portion of today. All right, so when you're thinking about what does this all mean, first thing that I want you guys to think about is that the population that you serve are going to follow these same trends. Again, the population that you serve are going to follow these same trends if they have not already due to services that you provide. So what does this mean? It simply means that organizations and companies will no longer be able to comfortably get by without making adjustments, not only to how they are serving individuals, but who they are using to help serve these individuals, employees and volunteers alike. I'll share with you guys here just a little story. I was actually talking with a group of individuals, and it was really actually related around the housing market. They were interested in getting a mortgage, and they shared with me that one of the reasons that they did not really seek home ownership is because when they went to the bank, they didn't see anyone that looked like them. They were nervous to have that conversation because they didn't see anyone that looked like them. Now, I know that that is talking about a corporation or a for-profit business, but we can take that and translate that right back into our world. If the population you serve are predominantly minority individuals and they don't see any volunteers that look like them, you may be missing that opportunity to truly engage. Again, you may be missing that opportunity to truly engage. So as we're discussing, again, some of these marketing tips that we'll get into, keep in mind that the population you serve are going to follow these trends, and you're going to have to ensure that you are mirroring that in your volunteer base. Second thing is that your volunteer base is going to start to look dramatically different, or you will run out of volunteers, or you will be competing for the same person. This goes back into a conversation that I've had with many friends, and you guys probably see it within your communities, that it's the same group of professional individuals, whether it's the same group of professional African Americans, or the same groups or individuals from the Latino or Hispanic population or other groups. You see the same handful of individuals on every board, or you see the same handful of individuals engaged in as volunteers. We have to realize that as the population is changing, there's going to be a greater opportunity for us to be able to engage with more individuals, not just those small groups. And so I just want us, again, write down your thoughts, but keep in your mind that we have to do something, because our volunteer base is going to look different, or we're going to be competing for the exact same people, that same group. So again, the time is now. The time is now is to strategically plan for the future. I will say that as you are putting together your marketing plan and ways that you will engage with diverse populations, please actually develop a plan. I always say if it's not in writing, it doesn't happen. Anybody else agree with that? I know for me, if it's not in writing, it does not happen. And so I need us to now take that extra step and let's start putting it to paper. What are we going to do to market and truly engage with our diverse populations? And so now let's hop right into the who. Let's talk a little bit about the who. So before you market, you have to know to whom you are marketing. One of the things that I take good pride in is really thinking through those individuals that you are looking to market. And so you have to ask yourself, who do you feel is missing from your volunteer base? Again, these are all questions. Just start to write down those notes, and we'll chat during our Q&A. But who do you feel is missing from your volunteer base? Who are you truly seeking to target? And why do you think they are not volunteering? Again, who do you feel is missing from your volunteer base? Who are you seeking to target? And why do you think that they are not volunteering? Now, I know that we will discuss this during our Q&A portion, but I do want to take just a quick little break and open it up to anyone to see if you want to answer one or more of those questions. Is there anyone that would like to answer one or more of those questions? And I'll maybe a hand raise, and I think Billy will probably take you off mute there. I see, is that Mrs. Johnson? Yep. One moment. There you go. Take it away.
Hey.
Hi, good morning.
Hi, good morning. Beautiful day.
It is, it is.
Well, right now we have about 70 active volunteers, and of those 70, 68 of them are white. So we have a long ways to go. So this, I think, is going to be a very important presentation because I really have no idea where to start.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I hope that we can answer some of those questions. And I will say to everyone, I saw something come in the chat there. I will make sure to share this presentation with everyone. You guys all should have my email. So I know this will be the start of a conversation, but I'm always here to help outside of these conversations. And Ms. Johnson, I'll also make sure that we share those video links as well. And just give me a call if the question is not answered in this presentation on what we can do to shift that. I'll be here to help afterwards as well.
Awesome, thank you.
I think I see Harlan. Harlan wanted to respond as well.
I'm involved in several environmental climate justice groups, including the NAACP's Environment Climate Justice Team. And we're looking for college students and high school students. And we're gonna have to recruit them. They don't even know how to get involved with us. But if they do, that will give us a tremendous amount of energy if they are passionate about the environmental crisis.
All right, I love that. Thank you for sharing that, Harlan. I am making a note so that once we get into digging into the ways to engage, I'll try to bring these back up either during that portion or during the Q&A. Is there anyone else that wants to share? All right, if not, we will move right along.
I would like to just say something really quick.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Sorry, I had to unmute and undo this all.
No worries.
I guess I feel as the manager of a volunteer program very fortunate to have diversity. We have, on any given normal year, obviously this isn't the normal year, I have over 2,000 volunteers that come and help the 174 residents that we have living in our homes, all of which have disabilities. We have churches from every faith. We have individuals that come that have disabilities and they help our residents. They are in a share program through their school. So I feel fortunate. So I love listening to how people are going to try to figure out what you have to do. People reach out to me. So I'm fortunate to have them reaching out and being diverse, even on our board of directors, which I do not have to recruit for. That our CEO does that. And it's a very diverse board. And I wish all of you could work for an organization like I do.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And I hope that as we get into the Q&A portion, you can share some of those great tips and what you guys have done to be able to engage those diverse populations. Thank you, thank you. Awesome, so we'll move right along. So I spoke to various diverse groups to get an understanding as to why they do not volunteer. So I'm a person who likes to do research. I'm a little bit of a research nerd. And so I just started calling up a couple different people and saying, why do you not volunteer? And this group, I will tell you, is reflective of some, but I don't want to say it's reflective of all of our diverse communities. It would not be fair to say that at all. But I think that it should give us a little bit of perspective. So again, I'm going to share some of the things that they said, and I want you guys to just make some notes on your thoughts so we can discuss a little bit later. So interviews with locals, individuals from Northern Illinois. Why do you not volunteer? First comment that I heard is that I don't feel welcome. They didn't have that sense of belonging. The second thing that I heard was that I don't speak the language. Now, this is pretty interesting because I heard this from two different individuals. The first individual spoke Spanish and said, hey, you know, I have a little bit of a thicker accent, and so sometimes when I'm out and about in public, people don't receive that as well. But the second person actually talked more about what I would say is cultural dialect, where maybe they don't speak what individuals would assume to be perfect English. And so in engaging and volunteering, if they are the only person that may speak that cultural dialect, they may feel unwelcome. The third thing is that they said that they'll be treated as a number, that they don't want to be there to check a box. This is something that I want you guys to be very cautious in as you look at your marketing and as your board members or team members are engaging with individuals to potentially become board members or to potentially become general volunteers. This is very important because I'll give you just a personal example. I probably get a call once a month to join onto a board. And I would love to think that I am very skilled, but I know that I am not perfect. I know that I am not the all-knowing, but I do know that there's something about me that might be pretty attractive to some of those organizations. And that is, I am a Black woman in a professional environment, and they need a board member that shows diversity. And so you have to be so cautious as you are looking at your marketing and as you are engaging with populations that they don't feel that they're being treated as a number, that they are not there to check a box. They are really there to be able to contribute. The next point is they want me to fill in or to fit in. I have to do this at my workplace already. I want to be able to be my authentic self and bring more of my uniqueness. Now, this is also a very important one. It's interesting because individuals who are minorities or maybe part of a marginalized group, often as they engage in public, they have to put on, you could almost say, baggage or a mask. They have to put on baggage. This baggage is, what do I need to do to fit into society's norms that may not fit into my culture? Again, what do I need to do to fit into society's norms that may not fit into my culture? And so this baggage is carried throughout the day. And so when they leave work, this baggage is taken off. This is a very good point that was shared for me by Jessica Oladapo. She works in kind of diversity training and things of that sort. And so I really appreciate it when she shared that point, because that baggage that you put on is taken off when you leave work as when you're a part of a marginalized community. And so when you go to volunteer, often in that type of setting, you have to put that baggage back on. So if the environment is not welcoming, if there are not individuals that can engage with that person, they probably are not going to want to put that baggage back on. They just took it off after they left work. Does that make sense? Awesome. All right. I also had some notes where I'm limited on time to volunteer, where I cannot bring my kids. I think that's something that resonates across all ethnicities. Flexibility is key. I may be able to do a day, but I can't commit long term, even though I want to. Again, you can see it resonates across all ethnicities. I'm sure anyone in the volunteer realm has heard that before. And then another one is that I would love to help if there was a chance for me to get involved, but I don't know if they're prepared to provide reasonable accommodations unless they say it. Again, I don't know if they are prepared to provide reasonable accommodations unless they say it. And so as you are looking at your marketing materials and you are engaging with populations, call it out. Don't be fearful to call it out. Of course, there's a nice professional way to say it, or nice respectful way to say it. But if you are looking for individuals that have diverse backgrounds, you need to say it. Just be honest. That will make it much more genuine, and they will understand that you're not trying to check a box behind the scenes, but you're truly looking to just engage, and you understand that there's work to be done. All right, so again, as I said, as we're talking about this, I just want you to write down, what do you feel when you're hearing these comments? What does it mean to you? All right, we're gonna go ahead and move right along just for sake of time here. All right, so let's get into the meat of the meat and potatoes, I would say. It's how do you market, including some common themes as you work with diverse populations. So I don't know if you guys have ever heard, most of us have, but the 4 P's of marketing. And so what I'm going to bring to you is the 4 P's of marketing as it relates to diversifying your volunteer base. And a continuing theme you're going to hear is engagement, engagement, engagement. So the 4 P's of marketing that we're going to discuss, if you're taking some notes, and again, I will give the presentation, but it's product, price, place, and promotion. Again, product, price, place, and promotion. So let's go ahead and dig in there. What do those words even mean? So when we're talking about product, we're going to talk about the product that you're selling, which is a volunteer position or a volunteer role. What is the volunteer position and what is the volunteer role? And we will break each of these down a little bit further, but just to give a general description. Price, what is the opportunity cost? We'll dig into that. Place, the location of the volunteer opportunity and belonging. Promotion, communication to encourage that individual to volunteer. So let's dig into these. The very first one we're looking at here is going to be product. And I know I have a lot of energy right now, you guys, but my coffee just kicked in, so you're in for a world of trouble. So, all right, the very first one is product. What is the volunteer position and role? So when you are developing your volunteer position and role, you need to ensure that the volunteer roles speak to the talents of that of these diverse groups, and they include flexibility. So what do I mean by that? We saw in a previous video that it stated that I believe somewhere around 29 of 100 individuals are going to have bachelor's degrees. So what does that mean for the rest of the population? Maybe the talents and the skills that are unspoken will prevent them from being able to volunteer. So as you are putting together your marketing, you need to spell out what type of talents that you are looking for and make sure it speaks to diverse populations or what is known about those different diverse population groups. The second thing is that you want to create a job description. I think we talked about this in maybe one of the previous sessions if you joined, but it's so important. Again, I just talked about those unspoken rules. And if you are not promoting or putting out an actual job description for your volunteers, or at least a good summary of what they're looking to do and the skill sets you're looking for, it's going to turn some people away. Let's go back to the individual who made the comment that they would love to volunteer, but they're not sure if that organization would be willing or offer reasonable accommodations. Imagine how much easier it would be for that person to engage and volunteer if there was just something that said in your job description that we are an equal opportunity volunteer employer, whatever the key term and the key word would be. But again, you have to make sure that as you're promoting and marketing that you're putting that information out there. And then also in all of your volunteer groups, I would say make sure that you include a welcoming statement. Many organizations have already started or have completed some type of statement that says that they respect and they appreciate diversity and they respect and appreciate inclusion. So if this is something that you're putting out about your organization for individuals that you serve and for your employees, this same type of statement should be developed and promoted for volunteers. If I was to go to an organization and I saw on their website or on their webpage for volunteers, it said, that we welcome individuals of all ethnicities, of all religions, of all backgrounds. Oh, that's something that would get me pretty excited about working with that organization and volunteering with that organization because they're taking that extra step. Not only is that welcoming statement going to recruit minority or diverse individuals, but it's also going to recruit the right volunteers that may not be minority or diverse individuals. They're going to know and understand what you stand for, and they're going to know that as they're going into the room to volunteer, that there's going to be people that look different, that have different backgrounds. So you get kind of a win-win situation with that when you're marketing and promoting. All right, the next thing is price. So I like to say, what is the opportunity cost? Opportunity cost to me simply means if I am doing this, I cannot do this. It's one opportunity or the other. So what I would say is that based upon the need of your talent pool potentially becoming slim, you want to make sure that you are communicating in your promotions what's going to be rewarding for this individual. We would love to say that people do things just because it's good and it just feels really good to do it. But guess what? There's a lot of opportunities where you can get those feel good experiences and you say, oh my gosh, I feel really, really great that I was involved. And so we have to be realistic that we are in somewhat of competition as we are seeking volunteers because that pool gets smaller. And so you have to communicate in your promotions what you're doing to reward that individual. Another thing that we need to keep in mind is what are the barriers due to actual tangible costs? So for example, if you're looking for a board member and there is an unspoken or actual spoken expectation to donate to the organization, Keep in mind that may turn away some individuals who may not be in the income bracket to be able to make some of those larger donations. So what does that do? That creates a barrier and prevents that person from volunteering at that high level. So keep those things in mind. Again, as you are doing your marketing and promotion, there all are different ways that you can incorporate this, but make sure that these are part of your thought process as you are pushing information out there. And just continue to communicate the reward in your marketing. Again, continue to communicate the reward in your marketing. What are they getting out of it? Are they getting additional professional experience? Are they going to get to engage with a diverse population that needs representation that looks like them? Let's call it as it is, but put some of that information out there. All right, the next thing is place. So where does your volunteer actually take place? Is it a neutral or welcoming environment? Example that I want to give here is that I was working with an individual and I had absolutely no idea, but he did not practice any religion at all. And so I invited him to volunteer with me for an organization. It wasn't a neutral location. You would have had no idea that it was from a religious organization, but once he got there, they started off with the prayer, which of course I am a woman of faith. I had no problem with that at all. But because he did not practice any religion, he was offended by it. And so we have to be cautious of how we're connecting and or at least communicating beforehand what to expect when that person comes in to volunteer. That way they can feel welcomed. Now, this individual, as I said, he was slightly offended and said, you know, I don't want to volunteer for this organization again. And I just kind of had to reiterate that, you know, that was not the intent. I'm sure that it was, you know, not to cause you to not volunteer or not to feel welcome. And there's other opportunities where maybe that doesn't occur. And so again, we just have to keep in mind that people have different religious beliefs and different backgrounds, and we want to make sure that it's welcoming or at least communicate what they can expect when they get there. Also, again, your volunteers must feel that they belong. Communicate the ways that you are helping to ensure this or paint this visual in your marketing. So if you're asking people to volunteer, yeah, it's great to put out a post and a picture of something that they will be volunteering to do, like maybe they're planting trees, but possibly in that picture, you want to make sure there's some diversity. Or maybe in that picture, you want to make sure that there's people that are looking like they're enjoying themselves as they're volunteering, rather than just having kind of an object in that picture. Does that make sense there? All right, moving right along. The last of the 4 Ps is promotion. What I want you guys to know is that in reaching diverse audiences, you should note that not one size fits all. One can clearly understand that if you were marketing to women, you can't just push something out there and say, this is good for all women. You cannot do that for different ethnicities and different diverse populations. You have to have that same frame of thinking. Rather than having a checkbox of ways to think, what you've noticed in today's presentation is that I'm giving you thoughts to consider as you are working on your promotions. Again, don't use the checkbox mentality that says, okay, I'm going to sprinkle in an African American. I'm going to sprinkle in someone that looks like they may practice a Muslim religion. I'm going to sprinkle this in. It's not just about that. You have to have the right mindset behind what you're doing. And that's what I'm pushing for as we're talking about marketing today. This is best going to allow you to be able to build those relationships. I would also encourage that you go to where they are. Now, when you are working with diverse populations, it's not just about putting out a commercial. It's not just about putting out a Facebook ad. It's truly about developing relationships. You have to get out and about to where they are. I'm going to give you guys an example again of this. I was working with an organization and we were seeking volunteer coaches, and the particular sport was football, was predominantly African-American individuals who were involved in it. And we said to ourselves, we're noticing that we're not getting African-American individuals to volunteer as coaches or to volunteer as cheer coaches. And so what are we going to do? Are we going to push stuff out on social media? Are we going to throw some ads out in our local newspaper? Are we going to go to the churches? Are we going to connect with the groups who are connected with those individuals to build a relationship and actually get them to understand that we are here to be a part of the relationship. And so I would encourage that as you are doing your promotion, we can all do the things such as social media, we can all do the newspaper ads, we can come up with the best television commercials if we want to, but you're going to have to take that extra step of engagement to go actually where they are. All right, so we're going to get into a couple videos here, and Billy, I might show maybe 2 of the videos just to go through, so we'll have for sake of time. So we're going to show, let's actually show, if we could skip to video number 2, Billy, and I'll stop sharing my screen if you want to pull that one up. Now, this is a video that I really enjoy. I think it shows a portrait of Apple, as it says. So it's showing how they have diversity in their workplace and how that actually branches off for potential volunteers. Can you show that you have diversity in your workplace? So let's go ahead and watch this video and write down some of your thoughts.
Open a door and it opens all the others. Open a mind and see what happens next. No great thing, no beautiful invention was created in a vacuum. It happens when we leave our comfort zone and come together. Embrace faiths, cultures, disabilities, differences. Embrace races, ages, ideologies, personalities, creating a tool or device nobody saw coming. Humanity is plural, not singular. The best way the world works is everybody in, nobody out. So who we're made of is everyone. Differences not just celebrated, but essential. Many more women in charge. Equal pay for equal work everywhere. A new generation of Apple, more diverse than the one that came before. Open is not just who we are, but what we believe as a company. Because humanity isn't singular, it's plural. The truth is, we don't see things the same. The power is, we don't see things the same.
Martesha, you're on mute.
One would think by today's age now, I would know to unmute myself, right? But Bobby, I'll have you prep the next video, and I just want to talk a little bit about what you can take from that video. I know that we are working for non-for-profit organizations, so the expectation is not for you to put together an elaborate video, but understand the feel and what you're taking from that video. The first takeaway from that video that I want you to make a note of is that it was inclusive of all. Again, it was inclusive of all. You saw Caucasian individuals, you saw African American, you saw Black, you saw a mixture of different individuals, and it was not just focused on minorities or the diverse population. And when you think about it, the right way to think about inclusion and diversity is to make sure that everybody feels included and everyone feels welcomed. If you put together an ad that just simply is only African Americans or only one particular ethnic group, it may not read well to that group. So think about what your organization stands for, and you want to exhibit that in all of your promotional materials. And by creating that identity for your agency as being an agency, an organization that is welcoming and that is diverse and welcomes all, will resonate when you are looking to engage your volunteer base. So we're going to go ahead and show this next video here. And Bobby, I actually might have you load up that, I might have you load up that first video because I think it really will be important for discussion. But you guys can see there, that was an Airbnb commercial. Did they even show a room or a really nice hut? They always have like these cool like little huts that you can stay in, like outdoor adventures that I really need to give a try, but I'm not that adventurous. But you could see in that commercial, they did not even show any of the properties that you could stay in, but they did show that if you were looking to stay in an Airbnb location, that we welcome all. And you got the feeling from that commercial. The next one I have to show, I'm looking at time and we do have enough time. I have to show this next commercial because I am a sports gal. I don't look like it. Don't let the red lipstick fool you. I am a big town boy. And so I have to show a Nike commercial. It's just a must. So take it away, Billy.
We're never alone. And that is our strength. Because when we're doubted, we'll play as one. When we're held back, we'll go farther and harder. If we're not taken seriously, we'll prove that wrong. And if we don't fit the sport, we'll change the sport. We know things won't always go our way.
And the world's sporting events are postponed or cancelled.
But whatever it is, we'll find a way. And when things aren't fair, we'll come together for change.
We have a responsibility
to make this world a better place.
And no matter how bad it gets, we will always come back stronger. Because nothing can stop what we can do together.
You're on mute again.
Thank you, Billy. I was going to say, let's give her some applause here because she is just like really making this seamless. So applause to Billy for doing the tech behind the scenes. I so appreciate that. As we look at that video, the takeaways that I want you to keep in mind is the fact that they had a respect for diversity, a respect for individuality, but they showcased the similarities. And as we think about the populations that we serve, when we think about our volunteers, there are a lot of similarities. You still can respect that diversity and showcase the similarities from the different groups that can volunteer. And I would ask you to illustrate that within your promotions. Another thing that I took away from that video, and part of the reason that I wanted to show it, is that they also showcased how important it is for you to be an advocate before you're asked to be an advocate. I'm going to say that again. They are showcasing how important it is for you to be an advocate before you are asked to be an advocate. It's so important. Our population and the population, or rather diverse populations, need to know that, again, they're not a checkbox, that your agency is not just doing this because it looks good, but you're doing this because it's something that is ingrained in what you're focused in on. So, all right. I just want to ask and make sure you guys are seeing the full presentation screen there. Okay, perfect. All right. I'm trying to be as cool as Billy today, so I got my tech on. All right, so now I want to end off with sharing with you guys themes and tips for your marketing engagement. These are things that you want to incorporate within your marketing and your engagement. All right, common things of when you're working with diverse population. First and foremost, consistency is key. You are building trust. As you are working with diverse populations, trust is going to be a major component. And so if you just engage with that volunteer base or that volunteer group once, and then you kind of ghost them out, you just go away, they're going to realize that. And so you have to make sure that you are in it to win it, that you are there for the long haul, and that you are building trust. You may not get a ton of minority volunteers off of your first advertisement or your first social media post, but you're going to have to be consistent with that. The second thing is that you have to be relationship focused. We've talked about this before. It's when we make decisions to volunteer, and I'm saying we, just saying as being a part of a diverse group, it has to be that relationship. I have to know why I want to engage with you. So see if there's some way that you can incorporate that within your promotions. The third thing is a respect for subcultures and individuality. Do not think that one particular minority group, for instance, do not think that the entire Hispanic or Latino community is one and the same. Do not think that the entire LGBTQ community is one and the same. You cannot just ignore that there are subcultures within these diverse groups. And so make sure that you are having respect for that individuality. The fourth thing that I'm going to say is that you want to make sure that you tell your story through their lens. I've heard this from various different diverse individuals. I need to see me. I need to see me. That resonates with actual in-person. If they're volunteering, they need to see employees or other volunteers that look like them, and that definitely resonates within their marketing materials. I was speaking with, like I mentioned before, I was speaking with Eric Brown, and one of the things that he said to me is that if they look at all of your social media posts and he doesn't see that you have anything that showcases a person with disabilities, or no wording, or maybe you're not captioning your videos, I don't see myself, which means I'm not going to want to volunteer there. It's the exact same thing if you're looking for a volunteer. I'll give you an example. As you guys all know, I work for the RACVB, and so as we are seeking volunteers for the workshop, should our photos just include white individuals, or should it include individuals of diverse backgrounds that have volunteered for Stroll and State from previous years? Again, I see me, that makes me feel welcome, that at least intrigues me to want to find out more and want to volunteer. Again, you have to think family. So once those individuals actually come to the volunteer opportunity, they have to be treated as family. You have to continue to engage them, and they have to know that they're a part of the family. So again, ways that you can showcase that in your promotion and ways that you can engage. You have volunteers, you should be taking video or taking photos during those volunteer opportunities and showcasing that they are included and that they are a part. Maybe that's posted on your social media, or maybe that's used for future recruitment. Of course, you want to explain that to them, but they're going to feel like family because they're a part of the actual day and they're a part of your promotion. Use your social media networks, or rather use your social networks that's physical as well as digital. Again, we talked about that before. Who are, or what are the diverse groups that you can get engaged and connected with to help communicate the opportunities that you have? And then again, as I always mentioned before, social media is going to be probably the best way to go as we're looking at what's going on right now with the coronavirus. 7, create a conversation. This is very important. Do not just do push marketing where you just post a photo and you say, come volunteer with us. Have an engaging conversation. Maybe say, what would you like to do? What do you enjoy about volunteering? Why have you volunteered in the past? Create some type of way to have a true conversation. Again, building that relationship when you're posting on social media so that it's not just out there a one-sided conversation. Another common theme is tie into a cause, a purpose to volunteer, but be sincere. Again, I'll go back to the example that we kind of talked about a little bit earlier. If you are truly seeking individuals, minority individuals, because you work with minority populations, that may be a good way to tie into the cause. You may simply need to say, that we want to have more diverse volunteers. We know the population we serve, and we want to make sure that we are being respectful and we are doing our due diligence in making sure they have individuals who have the same lived experiences. That allows an individual to tie into that cause and to tie into that purpose of why they're volunteering. The ninth thing that I want to share with you guys, and I see there's a little typo there, I apologize, is be an ally before it counts. We just saw a video on that. The next thing is that inclusion means just that, not isolation. So when you are putting together your marketing materials, individuals with diverse backgrounds should be included, but there most likely shouldn't just be an ad of just minority individuals. It's really going to look like you're checking a box unless you've been engaging with that population that way in the past. And then the last thing that I want to share is making sure that you have the right decision makers. As I'm looking at the group that we have here on the call, and I appreciate everyone moving forward and wanting to be a part, there is probably room for additional diversity to be here in this room. And I think it's probably because the topic, maybe that might be part of the reason as to why they're not in the room. But when you are putting together your marketing campaigns or you're looking to work and engage with diverse populations, please make sure that they are in the room at that time. They have to be in the room at that time. Do not push out marketing materials without engaging with either a community leader or someone that's within that particular diverse group to ensure that what you're putting out is going to be well received. I could probably give tons of examples of marketing materials that were pushed out because it did not include an individual from a diverse background. And of course, that resulted in a hiccup. It was not well received. So make sure that you have the right decision makers in the room. Who's involved in the final approval of that marketing material?
Hey, Martesha.
Oh.
Hey, it's Carrie.
Yes.
It looks like the PowerPoint is still stuck on the first slide. So we see the 1, 2, and 3.
Oh, there we go. Sorry about that. Sorry about that. So we're on that last one, the right decision maker, making sure those who are involved in your final approval process so that you are not doing it alone. And I can tell you, even if it's someone that is on the front line of your team, they are going to absolutely love that you are engaging them to make sure that you are reaching those groups in the right way. They're going to love it. They're going to feel even more engaged in your company and organization because you are asking them. So thank you guys again so much for your time. I really appreciate having the opportunity to talk about how we can market to diversify our volunteer base. And I know that we will have some good conversations coming soon. So I hope you will stick with us. And thank you guys again, Nickney, for giving me the opportunity.
Thank you. So we're going to take a short break. I will put up a break slide for you and we'll start the discussion in just about 5 minutes.
you get a refill on your coffee, girl?
Oh yeah, I use 2 K-cups. I got a big old cup of coffee right here now.
I use 2 K-cups. That's awesome.
About a pound of creamer in there, you know.
Oh, that's perfect. Cool. I think we're probably ready to get started. So it's always easier to moderate a conversation when we can see your face. But so if you'd like to start your camera, we would love to see your smiling faces. Hi, Barb. Hi, Dawn. Hey, Pam. Hi, friends. Hi, Greta. Awesome. Thank you. I know that that's not always the easiest case. Martesha, was on no camera for a short period of time during your presentation because I was eating my breakfast, and I'm pretty sure you don't want to watch me eat hard-boiled eggs on video. So that's what. So first, let me say, awesome. That was amazing. Thank you for your insight, and thank you for your honesty. Not always an easy conversation to have, but one of the things that was really profound about, one of the comments that you made was, I need to see me. And so I see me everywhere. And so I really appreciated hearing you say that and feeling that, right? It was great to see the commercials that you shared, right? So that so many people could identify with people who look like them and people who represent them. So thank you for sharing your insights. It was a fantastic conversation. So I guess let's start with maybe, let's talk about the first video, right? So I think Martesha's question was, what does this all mean? So the first video was the video about socioeconomic status. Actually, maybe it wasn't a video. I think maybe it was a slide. That 1 in 4 people have a disability. And so if you have more than 3 people volunteering for your organization, then you better have a disability plan, right? So what did that mean to you? What were your thoughts about that? It kind of rolled into that video also that we saw where it had the 100 people, right? The images of 100 people. And then it showed us how many people spoke English and how many people had a bachelor's degree and a master's degree, those kinds of things. Oh, look at all my friends here. Hi, Ron Kluwer. Hi, Robin. I see all of my favorite peeps in a conversation that is more meaningful today than it's ever been. So give me your insights on that. How did those things make you feel? Hi, Pam Thompson.
I see Kristen there.
Oh, hi, Kristen. My RSVP buddy. How are you doing, friend?
Good, and you?
Good. I'm good.
Okay.
I'm good.
So, what I noticed is that we were talking with the 1 in 3, I believe the statistic was. I've always just, with a disability, we make accommodations for people with wheelchairs and people with low vision or, low hearing, but, I don't know where to go beyond that.
Okay.
Of course, I, check at Google stuff and things like that. And I think that we do a pretty great job considering we do work with an older population. But is there any, are there resources out there to help us understand those disabilities more? Because I would love to, we have a lot of opportunities for a lot of different people with a lot of different ranges of all kinds of things with having an RCP program that really works with so many different organizations. If I could be confident in saying yes, I know these locations do this and things like that, is there resources out there for us?
Oh, yeah.
Go ahead, Martesha.
I was going to say Eric Brown from RAMP has been, and he actually, I got permission to share all of his information, so I'll maybe send that to, I'll maybe send that off to you guys, but he has been so phenomenal and such a good friend in helping me to understand, because, even in being a minority, I want to make sure that I am not misstepping and that I understand fully how I can be more inclusive. And he has just been such an asset and such a good friend. And he is willing to go onto your sites to take a peek and see what you can do to make sure that it's more accessible. He actually provided a training specifically on marketing to individuals with disabilities, which was phenomenal. He explained to me how important it is to describe your pictures in your social media posts, in case someone is using some software to help them with reading through the posts. So, I mean, he is such a wealth of knowledge, and I'll make sure to share his information. I think that would be very beneficial.
Thank you.
And could tap into, they have a group of individuals as well, so it may tap into some of the populations that they serve. So maybe that's a good connection for additional volunteers you haven't tapped into.
Yes.
For your, so for those of you who aren't from Rockford, right, RAMP is an organization that we have in Rockford that works specifically with people with disabilities. So Eric Brown is an advocate for that organization. My husband actually works for a company out of the Quad Cities as a UX designer, so he designs mobile apps. And when he went to his company to say, we need to be more accessible, I said, you should call my friend Eric Brown. And so now all of their, websites have this screen reader capabilities, and they're, using accessibility as they're having that conversation about accessibility. Renee mentioned in the comments that she, let me scroll up here for a second. She said, recently we were able to reach out to seniors with mobility issues. And then she said, check out the IUADA site. So Kristen, that might be a place for you to check out. Renee, I'm not 100% sure where you're from. I know you're having some technological issues today. But for those of you who are maybe looking for some resources, the IUADA site might have some good resources. So let's just, for a brief second, talk about disabilities a little bit longer. And then Kristen, I'll get to your question. I know you have to hop off here in a few minutes. Does anybody else have any best practices that their organization uses as it relates to engaging those with disabilities?
Excuse me, I don't have tech issues. I just use the chat so that I don't step on other individuals that are speaking. But the National Center for Disability is located at Indiana University. It's a great site to use. They'll have people come out and actually walk your site and let you know what you need to do, who you need to call. We've had tremendous success with them. And where am I from? The 4th Preserve District of Will County.
Great. Thank you, Renee. Thanks. Awesome. So one of Kristen's questions was, and Martesha, I'm going to throw this to you, and then we can throw it out to the group if they have any additional thoughts. She says, we're located in an affluent, predominantly white area, not on public transit, in the city of Chicago. Suggestions on how we can draw people from other parts of the city to diversify.
Absolutely. So what I would encourage there is to engage with a diverse group, whatever that population that you're looking to work with. Engage with an organization that works with that particular group. I'll give you an example. There, specifically here in Rockford, there was a teen group that was willing to volunteer. My mom actually works with the group. They were willing to volunteer. There was someone out in the suburbs that needed volunteers, and what are they going to do? Let's load up a van and let's go ahead and drive those kids there. Now, the best way to be able to do that, again, as I mentioned, is to actually engage with that group. So if you don't have that population directly in your area and there's transportation barriers, maybe you can work with a particular organization or group that is looking for opportunities for those kiddos or adults to volunteer, and then maybe you can engage. Every Thursday, they're coming to your location to help volunteer. I think that would be the best way, especially if there's a transportation issue.
That's a great point. Does anybody else have any success stories that their organization has had as it relates to, the barrier of transportation, or maybe your organization is located in a place that's not diverse and you want to be able to diversify your volunteer base, but you're only, Renee, I see your hand. Let's hear what you guys are doing.
You also see me smiling. We are such a large county. We go from the Indiana border down over to Kankakee, and we run the gamut of people not being able to get to us. And I put in the chat box, the SRAs are great opportunities to to reach out to individuals with disabilities for one. They also have vehicles that can transport. So if you get a relationship with an SRA in your area, you may be able to explore different options.
That's a great point. Thank you.
Awesome. I think I saw Kate. Kate? Yep, take it away.
Kate's a common name. I never quite know if it's me.
Sorry, Kate Brown.
I don't know if that's even, like, I don't know if that's any more unique, but, but I too work in an area that is predominantly white, affluent, and we're on a barrier island, and it doesn't have city transportation. And if you just cross over back onto the mainland, so if you just go over the bridge, it's a very different population. And a lot of people don't even realize, oh, let me first just say I work at a nature preserve. And a lot of people don't even realize that we exist because we're kind of tucked away, you know, behind all of these other very expensive housing and clubhouses and things. And so one of the relationships that we wanted to build was to serve them as part of our community, but also get them to be able to experience the conservation that we do. So a way to, I guess, just invest in that relationship was we sat down and asked them, you know, what is it that they're planning in the next couple of years, and what are they missing, and how can we help with that? And so I wouldn't say it's a success yet because COVID really threw it for a loop. So we haven't been able to follow through on the plans yet. But what we're hoping to do is visit their site at their youth community center twice a month to do science conservation programs. And then we will provide transportation for the other 2 Saturdays of the month to come out and do hands-on volunteer work. So it's helping with our preserve, but we also want to use it as an opportunity to teach them about the natural world in situ, as well as teach them about environmental jobs and other things like that.
Love that. That is awesome, Kate.
Awesome.
Really appreciate you sharing that.
So let's move to, so Martesha had some conversations with some locals, right? Do you remember some of those statements that people made, right? That she shared? Martesha, if you share your screen, if you want to share your screen again and maybe toss that up, let's talk about that. Like, how did, what stood out to you in those statements that people made? What have you heard before? How have you maybe addressed, why am I echoing? I do this all the time. Why, you know, how have you addressed some of those concerns that maybe you've heard of, right? So yeah, thanks, Martesha. That's awesome. I don't feel welcome. Have you ever heard that feedback before? Or I feel like I was treated as a number? How about this conversation that Martesha had about, you know, how people feel like they can't be their authentic self, right? That at work, they feel like they, you know, can't necessarily be themselves. And then when they get home or when they go to somewhere to volunteer, that they want to be able to like shed that backpack and like just be themselves. Have any of you ever heard any of those kinds of comments before? Or, you know, inklings of those comments? I see some smiles on some faces. I've had the conversation a few times, right? Greta, you and I can attest to this, right? Primarily white, elderly Christian men volunteer for Habitat for Humanity. So our volunteer base is about 99% old white Christian man. It's who we are, right? And so, Martesha, my fear is that the person in your example that you were speaking of is someone you brought to a Habitat worksite. I won't make you say that out loud, but it could be true, because we've had a significant number of people tell us that in theory, that would have been a great, you know, volunteer opportunity, but I didn't fit in there. And so we add a complexity to that the people who are volunteering at Habitat worksites know construction. And then we show up there with people who don't look like them and who don't act like them and who don't know how to do things like them. And so what we hear all the time is that I don't fit there. I don't fit in. Who else has heard that? It's hard, you know, like it's hard to admit that, but we got to be honest about that, right? What are the things you've heard? Kristen, let me hear what you have to say.
So I actually have it where we have we have a kitchen that people work in, and for our Meals on Wheels program, and the majority of our employees are Black and come from probably a little lower income situations. And sometimes we have the problem that our older middle-class white Christian males feel uncomfortable there. And we have to go in and be like, hey girls, you got to turn the rap music off. You've got to calm down. Like, we've got guests in the building. I hate going from either direction.
Yeah.
I hate telling the girls, and I say girls because the vast majority are women in there. Hey, don't listen to your music. Calm down, watch your language. But I also hate that our volunteer feels uncomfortable in that situation.
Right.
So it comes from like both ends on my end, where I'm like, hey, you know, we have a local news personality that comes and volunteers every Thursday or every week. And he basically says, oh, don't turn it off for me. I don't care. Right. But then I do have other ones that come in and complain to me. So like, to me, it's a very uncomfortable situation on both sides for me.
I wanted to chime in there, Kristen. I think I want to say that that's a good example for the simple fact that I think most that are on the call right now, if you were to walk into a room and it was predominantly African-American individuals and maybe they were playing rap music, you would instantly feel uncomfortable. Could we agree? You'd say, wait a second, what's going on here? That is the exact same feeling that a minority individual feels when they walk into a room and all they see are white individuals. And maybe there's, I apologize if this is stereotypical, but maybe they walk in and they hear country music and they're like, this ain't for me. This isn't the right environment for me. And so, Kristen, I appreciate you bringing that up because it's a perfect example. We have to figure out when we are actually engaging with our volunteers, where is that middle ground, or how do we make sure that everybody feels comfortable? Because the important conversation that we're having today and that we've been having is what can we do to diversify our volunteers? And diversity means a mixture of all different backgrounds. And so we have to be cautious of that all the way across the board. So I appreciate that as an example. I think it really resonates. Carrie, if you mind, I might add in here, and I want to ask a question about a particular quote that was listed here. And I actually want to challenge to see if there's some way that you guys would feel you would want to market. And that is specifically this little moment right here where it says, I don't speak the language. Right here, it says, I don't speak the language. When you're thinking about marketing and you're thinking about promotion, what can you do to make someone feel more comfortable if they feel that they don't speak the language? If someone does not speak the language, what can you do in your marketing and promotions to make them feel more comfortable?
Bring someone in that does. Good answer, Renee.
Oh, there you go. She's typing it in. Thanks, Renee. Bring someone in that does. You are absolutely right. I actually spoke to a family member the other day, and they mentioned that at the school system that they work at, they actually have translators that come in to help those parents who want to volunteer, because there are plenty of languages that are spoken in the school. And so they actually bring a translator in to make sure that they feel welcome. I would also encourage, go ahead, Robin.
I'm sorry. That's exactly what I did. I had someone who came in, I did not understand a word he was saying. And so I made an appointment for him to come back and then made sure I had a translator here. who could, explain everything to him. I also have a lot of my important documents and information in a different language so that they can read the other language, so that they're kind of reading what I'm saying, and then it matches up. So I have it in another language printed. So
absolutely. And I would say, as you said, having it in another language printed, I think you need to do that with your volunteer materials, to say that you want someone who is bilingual to come and be a volunteer, but then you're not respecting the change in that language that they're utilizing by not having it in Spanish. You need to be cautious of those kind of things. And then I love what you said, if you're going to be able to bring in a translator, maybe that's also incorporated in your marketing materials. If you are seeking to volunteer for us and speak a different language, please contact so-and-so. We may be able to provide a translator for you.
That's a great point. Renee also said in the chat box, Martesha, that sometimes family members can help with that as well, that they've had some success with that. We feel the same way. We've certainly had, quite a few families come through our program who speak a different language. And so we use Rock Valley College a lot for translation services. And then we've also used family members as well that have helped us, bridge that gap. But Robin, that's a really great point about, ensuring that you have, materials, your training materials, right? So like, in Exchange on Volunteerism, for those of you that have been longtime members of Exchange, we talk about this all the time, right? That we have to make the first day a day that everyone feels welcome. And one of the things that we do on that very first day is to ensure that everything they need is in their language, so that they can understand what our expectations are. So I think that's a really great point about ensuring that we are accommodating to those who have that speak a different language. Or, as importantly, Martesha, I think the second part of that statement was my accent, right? I mean, we have to be cognizant of that, and we have to be non-judgmental about that, and we have to learn to accommodate that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Christina had a
yeah,
comment.
I see it.
And another thing, I work for University of Illinois Extension, and so we have a community garden that we work with our 4-H team at a youth center. Well, we've been there for the past 2 years. We did a small community garden. We kind of built on that. We've added some additional landscaping and natural plants and pollinator area to that. We were very consistent for 2 years going, and then now COVID's hit, and it started in spring where we typically would be working with the youth to start the garden and everything. And so now that we've kind of been remote for this whole growing season of a year, it's like we're going to have to go back and build that trust back up again and that relationship. It's like we've been there for 2 years and they're like, hey, it's Miss Chris, the crazy plant lady, bringing more plants, or, happy about it. But it's like, if you've been gone a year, will they still build that connection because you've had to be gone? That's my biggest fear on some of our continuing projects that we have, is how do we build that trust back up again?
I think that trust is so very important. I appreciate you bringing that back up, Christina. That was one of the key points as we were ending the presentation, is how you have to be able to build that trust. Rather than me answering the question, can I ask around what you guys have been doing to build that trust during the epidemic and continuing to work with those different diverse groups? Are there any ideas? Barb?
Since the restrictions have been lifted a little bit, we have incorporated distancing measures with our volunteer base, and we have limited the amount of volunteers that we have in correlation with how many regular volunteer staff members that we would have on site. I also am involved with the Will County Forest Preserve District, and we base it on how many active volunteers that we normally have at a site, and then we incorporate X number of extra volunteers to make it like a 25-person limit. And then we also keep in contact with the volunteers via newsletters, emails, and things of that nature to let them know what we have planned and if they're interested in continuing with the relationship.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that, Barb. Is there someone else that'd like to share what they've been doing to keep engaged? All right. All right. I have a question for you guys that I wanted to kind of circle back and get back into this mindset of marketing and being able to develop that trust in what you can do to actually engage diverse populations through marketing. I want to know, what have you been doing thus far to engage diverse populations in marketing? What have you seen that's been successful? What has worked for you? I don't know if she's still on the phone. There was someone who had some great ideas on what they've been doing to diversify their marketing base. Yep.
Don't be shy.
I think I hear someone. All right. Well, I will share a couple of things that Spanish, I think Renee has just typed in, Spanish Center and college Zoom meetings. Can you expand on that a little bit more, Renee?
Renee, you're still on mute, love. There you are.
I know I had to unmute myself. Yes, we have a variety of colleges and professors that we have been in contact with over the years. In the past, we've actually gone into the classrooms and met with the students, but due to COVID, the professors still want to engage with us, and that's a great area for us to get a diverse population. But as Barb indicated, our numbers are limited to what we can offer them, so they have to be flexible with us to keep them safe, as well as the volunteers safe and the staff safe. So it's been tough, but actually one of the reports that I have to finish to the colleges is how good the efforts have been to get her students out to us. And I think we've been able to do it, but I haven't completed the report yet. Also, the Spanish Center has been an amazing opportunity for us to, and I'm sorry, but I don't look Spanish, okay? And I'm not on here, or Latinx or whatever. So it's really important for the Forest Preserve District to pair and partner and mentor with people that don't necessarily look like me, so that they can, and I loved your quote, was they can see themselves volunteering for us.
Thank you so much for that, Renee. I appreciate you sharing. Definitely appreciate you sharing. So I want to ask an open-ended question. What have been the barriers to you guys being able to diversify your marketing or diversify your volunteer base? What are the barriers? What's stopping you?
Kristen.
Okay. So I think one of our biggest barriers is we all look like me. We are, white women. And to be honest with you, like I don't speak the language. Okay. So I'm very cautious of being offensive and things like that. And I feel like normally I go out and I'm pretty like out there. I talk a lot. You all through the months know this about me, but I'm very afraid to talk to other people and ask them to do something for me, because I don't know if I'm asking the right way. It's just, I know how to talk to elderly people, and but they're still, they don't want to be called seniors, or they don't want to be called, this or that. Like, so it's really the hesitation of like not knowing the right words, the language to speak to them, just as much as they don't know to speak to me.
Fear. Right, Kristen? I mean, it's boiled down to fear. Yeah. Martesha, Jackie has a really interesting comment in the chat box. It says funding to get community stakeholder feedback, diversity training, and translators. So funding to get community stakeholder feedback, really interesting. And then she says, finding the right people to transcend populations. So I'm going to agree with Jackie on that one for Habitat, right? This is for us. Right now, we don't have the right people in place to engage a diverse population. We are having this really tough decision right now, or conversation right now on our board of directors level about how we all look the same and we all bring people who look like us to the table. And so our problem is twofold. And so Greta, you can correct me if you think I'm wrong about this. But one, I don't think we have the right connectors. I don't think we have the right people to connect to diverse populations. And two, I think once we do get inroads and we do find someone of a diverse background, whether it's religion or gender or race, whatever it is, sexual orientation, they don't feel welcome. We do not have a space for, we have not created an environment that allows for diverse populations to feel welcome. And so we try and we try and we try. And then once we get someone who might not look like the older white Christian male, they don't belong. And so we get this feedback about, thanks for asking me to be a part of this, or thanks for having our church out on your build site, but my congregants don't feel welcome there. Pam.
I think I say this at each conference meeting that we've had, but just to piggyback on what you said, Carrie, in terms of boards of directors, I think boards know they need to diversify their board. I think we're pretty good at welcoming folks. Oh, we're so glad you're here. Thank you for coming, all those things, but that's where it ends. We don't see people. We don't hear them. We don't value their input often. I'm not saying always, but the belonging piece is the missing component. We might get a diverse group of people on our board, but they don't stay. And that's because we don't take the steps to make sure that we hear what they're saying, we value their input, that they take ownership in the organization.
I think you're so right about that, Pam. There's something that you said, Carrie, that I wish I could just put it on a t-shirt. You said right connectors, making sure that you have the right connectors. And I think that as you are working with diverse populations, I can't say it 100 times. 100 times wouldn't be enough, rather. You have to make sure that you are building a relationship, and you have to be completely honest with yourself if you don't have those relationships right now. And I think that is the toughest thing to deal with, is that you're like, I'm trying, but you can't try at this alone. You have to build a relationship with either an organization or an individual who has a diverse background that can help to introduce you to others. Mm-hmm. It has to happen. And so if you're seeing that you're not getting a lot of diverse individuals on your board, you probably don't have the right connectors, or you probably have board members that want diversity, but they want diversity at a level that they feel comfortable with. Let's just be honest about that. And so you have to have that tough conversation and right connectors. Harlan, I'm sorry, I see your hand there.
Well, for about 28 years, I've been passionate about the desire to create social integration in Rockford. And I developed a program that never flew. And I still have a passion for it, but the people I talk to about it say, I don't want to hear about that anymore. It's called Come Together Rockford. And it's the idea of having people who have no other agenda other than just they'd like to enjoy themselves. And before the COVID, it would be to get together in each other's living rooms. And then I talked to Black people who said, my living room, okay, in churches or community centers, and small groups, about 10 or so, and share some food, the welcome table, watch a TV show any day now, talk about it, have conflict and resolve the conflict or have greater understanding, and video those, and then create a TV show that would go out to the entire community, or maybe something on Facebook, but showing people from various backgrounds, Black, white, rich, poor, young, old, talking with each other and responding to this TV show, which is a show that ran for 4 years from 1998 to 2002. It's still relevant. It's a wonderful show. I encourage you to Google it. But I've never been able to get a group of people to work with me, because I can't do it by myself, together to start some pilot of this ongoing. I've done some one-shot deals and people liked it. But, and like I said, it's been 28 years. To me, the point you're talking about is we do not have social integration in this country. We have separate communities. I was a Peace Corps volunteer in India, and I can tell you that the experience of people from the quote white community and the black community, particularly white people going into or encountering the black community, it's just as enlightening and just as culturally different and challenging as it was for me to be a Peace Corps volunteer in India. We have so many similarities, but so many differences within our cultures, and lack of people just ordinarily having a great deal of comfort.
Yeah.
And so that's why I want to do it. I want to do something where we don't have any agenda. We're not doing a workshop on overcoming racism or anything like that. We're just getting together, but it just happens that all these issues come up and we end up talking about it. And then I have a technique that people can use to talk and listen called nonviolent communication, where they're not judgmental or labeling or anything, but rather they really share their feelings and talk about their needs and begin to connect with each other. In my head, it's a wonderful idea, but it's never been able to. I've never been able to find volunteers to work with me together to get it to take off.
I appreciate those comments, and I think what I'm pulling from those comments, and it's an idea I actually want to share with you guys, is taking the opportunity to bring groups together to have conversations, and maybe that can help to develop those relationships. I can't believe I forgot to share this, but at the RACVB, myself as well as 2 board members and another team member led an initiative that's called Welcoming Diversity. And so what we did was, rather than asking the 2 African-American individuals that work at the organization to have all the answers for the entire minority population, let's actually develop a focus group to give us feedback. And so we had a group of somewhere, I want to say between 15 to 20 individuals that we met with around 4 or 5 times. And we flat out asked, where are we missing the mark? We talked specifically also about marketing. What do you see and what are you not seeing? What should we be doing? And I think that if there was one piece of information or one piece of advice that I would ask you all to take, and it's a free way to do it, I know we just talked about funding, is get engaged with those communities, develop a user or a feedback group, bring in some of your board members that may need to hear it, because sometimes it's better when they hear it in person and they have to actually engage and deal with some of that tough feedback. Bring them in the room, have a feedback or user group, and have a series of questions that you are asking on what you guys could be doing better to engage volunteers in your marketing. And I think at that point in time, you will have more succinct answers and be able to develop a plan moving forward. So I just want to leave you guys at least with that last piece of advice and encouragement.
That's a great point. Martesha, I want to point out a couple of comments in the chat. Michelle said, we struggle with the structural requirements of our program being counter to welcoming all diverse populations, especially those of socioeconomic barriers. So for some of the people on the call today, it's an organizational issue, that there's a structural kind of barrier to, prevent people from organizations from engaging diverse populations. Terry says, we have so many different cultures in our community that it becomes very daunting to balance the message. We're actively working our museum story, but it hasn't necessarily trickled down to volunteers yet.
Can I give a piece of advice there to Terry? Yeah. I think it's definitely overwhelming to try to market to every single group. So if there was a piece of advice that I would give you, is similar to any of your other marketing campaigns and your engagement, there's specific groups that you want to go after. If you want to engage the Latino population, or you want to engage the African-American population, then you develop a marketing plan or an engagement plan specifically for those groups. Do not feel like you have to take the entire world on in this process. It's tough enough to try to engage one diverse group than it is to try to reach everyone. So maybe going back to your board of directors or going back to your team and say, where do we want to start? So that you don't feel overwhelmed. I definitely understand that.
And one of the things I think you said that was really profound in your presentation was not one size fits all, right? Like diversity isn't just this like blanket statement where you can address everybody other than, right, the one group that you have engaged, right? And so I think that's a really great point, like figure out, you know, right, when you talked about the product piece, right, the 4 Ps of the marketing, right, what is the role? Right, that there's, you know, there's an opportunity for you to say, what are the gaps in our organization as it relates to volunteers? And then how do we engage that group, right? That could be, you know, women, it could be younger people, it could be, you know, high school and college age people, it could be people of color, it could be Latinos, right? It could be anything, right? And so your organization has an opportunity to decide kind of who it is, right? They want to market to, and then build a marketing campaign around that. And don't just think that you create a diversity campaign and then that markets to everyone, because not it is not a one size fits all. Yeah.
I think Terry had a comment.
I think we've done that to a point. It just hasn't trickled down to our volunteer. We haven't done the volunteer marketing that we need to grab those people. Once we have introduced them to the museum, we haven't gone back and tried to get them for our volunteering. And that's where we need to kind of refocus.
Yeah. I love that idea, Terry. I love that you just said you have individuals that are coming to the museum and you're already in the mindset of saying, okay, now that you're at the museum, what can we do to shift you into being volunteers? Because we've engaged you to come in person to the museum. Now we want to shift you to be an advocate for us and being a volunteer. So it sounds like you guys are absolutely on the right track, and that's a very good plan to think of it that way.
Thank you.
I think Barb had a comment.
Martesha, I'm part of the volunteer recruitment team, and what I like to do is when I go to an outreach program, I like to ask the people, what interests you about whatever, about the outdoors. Sometimes I'll get people to say, oh, I use your trails a lot. I walk there and I take my bike and I ride the trails. And it's like, great, you're doing that. Why don't you become a trail sentinel? I said, you're already riding the trails. You enjoy what you're doing. And I said, you can give back to the community. You're doing what you love. So it's a win-win.
Yeah.
So why don't you try finding out what interests the people about the museum, about where they're at, and then maybe you can just like pull them in that way. I love this so much because, well, then you can share what you love and bring in more people.
Oh my gosh, Barb, that sounds like a marketing campaign for I think any of our organizations. I love this organization because you do something like, I'm sorry, my wheels are turning now. I'm a little bit of a nerd. But you do a marketing campaign and you say, I love this because you put that on social media. That's an engaging conversation, and you may see some diversity there where then you can begin to engage with that individual and say, hey, I noticed that you said that you love the trails. We actually do a trail cleanup every 2 weeks. Is that something you might be interested in being a part of? Then you're engaging in that one-on-one relationship. So I love that you said that, Barb, and I don't know, my wheels just got turning on. That's an opportunity to be able to market and have an engaging conversation through social media. So thank you for that, Barb.
So we have about 10 minutes left. So tell me, what are you going to do? Like, what are your action steps? What was your aha moment? Like, I want to hear from a few of you. So I'm not going to try to call you by name, but I want to hear from like 5 or 6 of you. What's next? Like, what is your next step individually? What's your next step as an organization? What are you committed to doing to help, diversify your marketing plan?
I think I have something. We've already started at the Arts Center, like a diversity and inclusion group to kind of, like, we meet every month just to discuss, what we've learned so far, like in our, conferences that we've been in, and just in personal experiences as well. And we're looking for like basically like how to start marketing in general, because we don't really market for everyone. So we're looking for like the proper wording, because we don't want to offend anyone, but we want to be relaying the message that, you know, we want to include everyone at the Art Center. So I think like this specific conference this month was really helpful, because I found like some really good wording that you were talking about like during the first session, and I was like, yes, like these are good points, like saying, you know, like we welcome individuals of all ethnicities, backgrounds, religions, you know, and I was like, yes, like this is the stuff that we needed to kind of get started. So I think I'm very excited to like relay this back to the team, you know, so we can start from there.
I wrote that down too, Amanda, that
Thank you.
welcoming statement on our website, right?
Yes.
We welcome everyone. Like,
Yes.
what a simple yet profound statement to say, right? Like, we welcome everyone of, you know, all color, all, you know, all genders, like, and just what a beautiful way to say, right? Like, in a powerful place, we are all inclusive. Yeah, I wrote that down too as one of my to-dos.
Yeah, it's so simple. I can't believe that
I agree.
I didn't think about it sooner, but
Me
yeah.
too. Me too. Harlan, what are you going to do, friend? What are you going to do?
I'm just wanting to respond to what was just said. There's
Okay.
a book called Dear Church, a love letter from a black pastor to the whitest denomination in America. And it refers to the fact that churches, all churches say we welcome everyone. And it's totally meaningless, because if you don't have a core group of people who belong to that particular group who are already there, they're going to be just a box checked, or, you know, somebody individual. They won't feel welcome. And he goes into a whole lot of other things. But it's an interesting book to read that helps us to learn and understand some things we didn't want to know, but it's important for us to know.
Great.
Dear Church.
I'm going to read that. Yeah. Terry mentioned in the chat box, Martesha, I'll be writing a report about this session, because you're awesome, and bringing it to the marketing team. The welcoming statement, and we are an equal opportunity volunteer group statement, is my top priority. So thank you, Terry. Renee says we have a strategic plan that we'll update. So that's, I think that's a great place to start, right? Like we, for those of us who don't have a marketing plan in writing already, we need to put one in writing, and we need to ensure that we've, you know, included how to communicate to diverse populations. For those of us who already have marketing plans or strategic plans in place, ensuring that there's a section in there for diversity. All right, who else? What else are we going to do? What are we committing to after this conversation? Greta, I see you're off mute.
Which is not directly related to marketing, but something that I thought of. In our restore, we actually do have a pretty diverse group of volunteers, but they are very segregated. So we have two groups of people coming in. We have what we call our true blues, which is generally white couples or individuals who are older coming in. They find something that they're passionate about, and they stick in that one section. But then we have community service volunteers, people who are in there by suggestion from court, who are very, very, very diverse. And something I've noticed is both of those parties really like me. I can leverage both of the older people, but also the people that are my age. I'm 25. A lot of our community service volunteers are around my age. So I've noticed both of them are comfortable with me, but both of them do not talk to each other. When I'm in there, I'm talking to both of them, but they're not talking to each other. And just sitting here, I'm like, I think I can be more intentional about bridging those two people, being that I'm kind of that middle person where they're both comfortable with talking to, but not maybe okay without me. I think even just being more intentional when I'm in there, bringing in someone, if I'm talking to a true blue, if someone, you know, community service walks by, kind of bridging them and bringing them into the conversation. And then maybe once I leave, that relationship has a tiny little seed that they can grow on when I'm not there.
Yeah, I love it. I think that is a perfect idea, and I appreciate you taking the leadership to do that and realizing that you are the bridge between those two groups and what can you do to connect them. I think that's absolutely awesome. I'll toss a fun idea at you guys since we were talking about music a little earlier. It's a small but funny idea. I mean, if you have two different groups that are with each other, they all like their different types of music. Maybe you ask them to put together different playlists and you play the songs and you switch it up a little bit. You will be so surprised. I've done that before. This was with teenagers years ago. But you will be so surprised some of the songs that they know that you did not expect for them to know. And it just creates laughs, and it shows that there are so many similarities. And Greta, that's exactly that I think what you're going to be doing as you're building that bridge is showcasing that there are similarities between both of these groups, and what can we do to celebrate those?
Yeah, it's funny you say that specifically about music. We had a staff member who I didn't typically talk to, and he heard me come in and I play my music very loud. I was playing a new Cardi B song, if any of you are familiar with her, and I walk in and we had never really talked before, side of hi, and we now, every time I come in, have full-blown conversations. Mm-hmm. He's like, oh, you're not just like a white female, like there's something that we can connect on. So it's funny that you say music, because I think that is a big connector for a lot of people, and it shows how you can be diverse based, behind just what you look like.
Yeah. I think that was one of the things I appreciated the most about the Nike video is that, and I've seen that video a couple times, and honestly, the first time I saw the video, I was like, how did they do that?
Yeah.
Like, that was my instant reaction, right? And I watched it a couple times in amazement about how beautiful it was. And today I looked at it with a completely different lens, right? That we're so different, yet we're so similar, right? That those split shots, although beautifully done, and still I have no idea how they did it.
Sure.
What it proves is that with even as different as we are in, even in competing in a specific kind of sport, we have similarities, right? And so, there really is an opportunity to build on that idea that we may not look the same, we may not listen to the same music, we may not have the same religion, we may not have the same socioeconomic background, we may not have the same education, whatever, but there are things that bond us, right? Like, we all love grandma's chocolate chip cookies or whatever, right? Like, we all have traditions at holidays, and there are so many things that we can do to engage people in conversation about their similarities that all of a sudden differences don't matter, because now we're able to build those relationships. Martesha, the one of the things that I really took from your conversation today is we have to build stronger relationships with people who aren't like us. We have to be willing to do that. We have to find the right connectors, and we have to be willing to say, for the better of our organization, for the better of our clients, for the better of our community and our nation, we have to work together. Relationship building is the key to that. So.
And I'll just add to that, don't feel bad about it. I think the toughest thing to deal with is, oh, we haven't done it, and just being able to admit that. But don't feel bad about it. I think you need to applaud yourself from the fact that you recognize it, and applaud yourself because you want to actually work towards it and you want to fix it. So don't allow yourself to get bogged down if you feel like, oh gosh, we missed the mark. Well, guess what? Now we're headed towards the mark. So just have a shift in that thinking.
That's awesome. So, okay, one quick comment. Yep.
I've been acutely aware of the apartheid we live in Rockford, and the exception I found is when I go to the YMCA, or when I went to the YMCA, amazing amount of diversity among people who are in the same groups, but they're not necessarily interacting a lot with each other and socializing with each other. And yet, coming from that, there may be some real opportunities within the YMCA to develop a greater amount of true diversity in terms of really interactional, relational.
That's cool. Thank you. All right. I know you're going to get this from about 5 million other people, Martesha, but thank you. Thank you for your expertise, for your honesty, and for your knowledge, and really for being such a fantastic advocate, not only for NICNE, but for our entire community. We certainly are lucky to have you as our friend at NICNE and our co-facilitator of this conversation. So thank you for what you bring to the table.
Thank you guys for letting me be a part, and thank you so much to Nickney for having these conversations. This is very, very important. I just appreciate the leadership of the organization for doing this. So thank you guys so much. And I'll
Great.
send my email. I'm always here to help.
Awesome. Thank you, friend. All right, Billy, I left you 4 minutes this time. Look at that.
Thank you. I'll echo your sentiments. Thank you so much, Martesha. That was a fantastic presentation. And thank you, Carrie and Martesha, for both leading that conversation. My name is Billy Callahan. I'm the Associate Director at NCNE. And I just want to remind you that I will share the video recording for today's event out following our session, along with the links to those YouTube videos and a copy of the PowerPoint presentation. I'm going to share a little bit of information about what we have coming up that you will want to know about. So on November the 5th, which is tomorrow, can you believe it? We have our certificate in nonprofit management program beginning. So we will have a class, it's a 4-session class taught by Martesha Brown, so someone you know really well, and an expert in marketing. She'll be teaching marketing and communications for nonprofits. If you are interested in registering for that, please email me or message me today and I can get you set up. It's $225 for NCNE members and $250 for those who are not a NCNE member organization. Next week, we have our case management certification beginning. So twice a year, we hold a training for case management skills based on Dr. Beverly Ford's book, Making Case Management Work. So that is a person-centered, outcome-based approach to case management. If you're in human services and work with individuals that need services, you may want to consider that. Usually it's a half-day training, but we are offering it on Zoom. So we're going to break it up across 3 sessions so we have more time for activities, questions, and engagement. And I'm sure you all remember I shared last month information about Dr. John Powell, who had come to Rockford on October the 23rd for a conversation around othering and belonging. I have the link for the recording here. I will also share that with you in an email. And we are proud to share that we had over 8,500 people watch that video so far. We're really exciting to be furthering that conversation in our community and in the Rockford region. The next session we have on December 2nd will be led by Todd Wellman. He's the program director for Public Allies in Milwaukee. So he's going to speak to us about recognizing shortcomings, recognizing gaps that you might have within your program, how to take some of those tough criticisms or look at yourself with that critical eye, and then do something about it. So again, want to thank everybody today for coming, and we're so happy to spend some time with you this morning. Everyone have a great rest of your week.
Thank you.